the Dukes weren't hazardous. She's only 17, made us curious. It was a carefree time. How about we jump back and rewind? We were living on Winger and a prayer, just garbage pail kids with mullets and big hair. Let's open up another pack. Gen X wants their future back. Break out the denim jackets with faded band patches. Share memories, Polaroid captured. It's the Gen X Marks the Spot podcast.
From the Wherever I May Roam studio, it's Gen X Marks the Spot podcast, and I'm your host, Joe Augustine. Welcome to the second season of Gen X Marks the Spot podcast. I am thrilled to say season 1, 20 episodes, was a huge success. We had incredible guests. We had the legendary drummer Carmine Appice, famous frontman Graham Bonnet, and stunt driver of the Dukes of Hazzard, Corey Eubanks. Those guests and everyone else that was a part of the Gen X Marks the Spot podcast season 1, I cannot thank them enough for being a part of the Gen X Marks the Spot podcast. I cannot wait to see what season 2 is going to bring. And speaking of season 2, today we have two guests, Roy Cathey and Marc Ferrari of the band Cold Sweat. Now, for those of you who may be just a little unfamiliar with Cold Sweat, since their debut album release, Breakout, in 1990 on MCA Records, they have had a cult following, and they are now planning on releasing new material and touring. Just to give you a little bit more background on Cold Sweat, or should I say Marc and Roy, Marc was the lead guitarist for the legendary Keel band. In the late 80s, Marc decided he wanted to go in a different direction musically, and instead of just keeling over, do you like what I did there? He decided he wanted to form his own band, and that's how Cold Sweat came about. He's going to talk a little bit about that and much more. As for Roy, well, his opportunity to front Cold Sweat may have been washed away. You'll have to listen for that part, as he talks about the opportunity he got to audition for Cold Sweat. Both Roy and Marc, they're going to be talking about their latest release called Unburied Alive. This release, it features 4 studio tracks that have sat unreleased since the early 1990s. This release also features live performance from the band's 2020 Monsters of Rock Cruise pre-party. And check this out, the vinyl pressing adds a new track, Loud and Forever. Now, if you're looking for Loud and Forever to stream, it's not out there yet. But Marc and Roy say, just hang tight. We're in 2026 right now, and that's going to be happening. A brand new release, Loud and Forever by Cold Sweat. How about we chill right now and get to the interview with Marc and Roy of Cold Sweat. I know you guys got back together in 2020. From reading information on the reunion, is it true that you guys only had one rehearsal and it all just gelled after 29, 30 years of being apart?
That's absolutely true.
Yes.
That's all we could afford.
We could. That's true. Only one afternoon of rehearsal, or they were going to kick us out. You know, we had like a 4-hour slot, I guess. I don't know.
You know, I watched the video of the pre-show for the Monsters of Rock, and you guys were awesome on there for only one rehearsal.
Thank you.
Well, they say it's like riding a bike. So I guess none of us forgot how to ride that bike. We all did come in pretty well prepared, though. I mean, we were
Yes.
for instance, the other guitar player and I were Zooming together, our drummer and bass player were Zooming together, just working stuff out. And so when we got in and we didn't really change we didn't really change up too many of the songs up. So it was pretty simple, for us. It's like a jigsaw puzzle, man. You put the pieces back together and it works, it fits. That's what it was kind of like.
Yeah, and Cold Sweat has always had a certain chemistry amongst the band members. It was always something very special. There was just a synchronicity with us on stage, and anybody that saw us live back in the day, they knew that they were seeing something special. So, we're all grizzled old professionals now. So, like Marc said, we came in prepared, but we did. We came in there and we bashed it out. It was a full afternoon, and we knocked it out, and we came out on stage, and it was like somebody took the pause button off, and it was 1990 all over again.
So what was the reception like for you guys being the first time together and the crowd? And
Well, I mean, I would like to think that we were, the reception was amazing. I mean, I think that we got a great reception from the audience. Cold Sweat has always been very much a cult band. You know what I mean? We had our core audience of people that each person that bought that CD when it came out, or saw us when we opened for Dio or one of the club tours that we did, they all knew that they were seeing something special. So we kind of stayed in their DNA for many years. So when they get the chance to see a band that isn't actively touring and is of a cult status like us, man, they were blown away, and we brought it. We felt the magic. It was, you hate to sound corny and cliched and everything, but it was a magical evening. It was.
Well, also, in this day and age, you've got YouTube and you've got people leaving comments, 5 minutes after something's posted up, and I read them, and
Mhm.
we got a lot of love from the people,
Yes.
Like Roy said, it really was a special evening. I mean, we could have, fall flat on our face, but we didn't. We wanted to prove we still had the gas in the tank. I don't think we'll take another 29 years off. 29 years off.
Oh my God.
And by the way, it is true that I hadn't even seen a couple of guys in the band, in 29 years. Yep. Eric, the other guitar player, lives out here in California, so I'd seen him. But Roy, I don't think you and I saw each other, and I think with Anthony, I hadn't seen him in those 29 years. So it really was a magical reunion.
Yes, it was. It was.
Now that performance, and I may be wrong on this, but that led to the Unburied Alive album that came out.
Unburied Alive album it's aptly named because the unburied part was a lot of the demo recordings that we did in late 1990, and early 91 that hadn't surfaced, not even on the internet. And the Alive part was the inclusion of a couple of live shows, one of them being from the cruise, and the other one, I believe there's one or two songs from 1990 when we played in Germany at the Monsters of Rock Festival. So it's a very aptly named album.
Unburied Alive. And we felt like we had been unburied. Like rock and roll zombies coming back to life.
Now, going back to your debut album and, grunge took over, and it was such a great album. Do you guys feel like you kind of got robbed a little bit of all the talent that was in the band and such great songs that it never really got the push that it deserved? Because if I remember correctly, Roy, you had said in one of the videos that, and oh my gosh, the name just escaped me, the name of the song, that it debuted on MTV the same day you guys were let go by your record label.
True story.
And I apologize, the name of the song is escaping me.
It was Let's Make Love Tonight.
That's it, yes.
You try not to be bitter. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Marc had a great run with Keel, so he got to really, ride it in a higher saddle than Cold Sweat did. But I think that he deservedly was expecting a little bit more from the Cold Sweat experience because he wrote some great songs. We had some great songs. We had a great look. Everything was just pointing in the right direction, but it was just a timing thing. And I hate to look back and be bitter about it because as you're saying while we're doing this interview 30 some years later, people are still talking about that damn record that was buried by MCA. I mean, the record was buried. It was involved in litigation, it was buried, and we had everything going against us. And still, it's 40 years later, people are saying, yeah, but that Cold Sweat record, man. So that is something that I wear as a badge of honor. I'm very proud of it, proud of the band. And it's terrible that the record didn't come out around, 83, 84, 85. Might have been a different story for sure.
Well,
I concur.
I concur.
I concur. Look, we can all be armchair quarterbacks here, and pontificate on what went wrong. I always liken success in the music industry. It's like a relay race, right? In a relay race, you got 3 or 4 runners that all they all contribute to the success of the team. One runner takes the lap around the track, hands the baton off to the next runner. Next runner takes the lap around the track, hands the baton off. So we handed off a solid baton to our record company. All right. We turned in a great record. Like Roy said, some great songs, great production, great musicianship. I think, I think it was among the strongest albums released that year, in our genre of music. We took our lap around the track, but somewhere along the relay race, the baton was dropped,
Yes.
Yeah, we were signed to MCA, which was never known as as a powerhouse rock label. In the time that we were signed, they had probably a dozen other bands, right, Roy? You had.
Yeah, we were signed in a glut, of bands. There was about, I don't know, around 8 to 12 that was around us at the same time.
We did take a little bit of a gamble going with MCA. Our manager, Wendy Dio, felt at the time that we signed our deal like in 88, 89 originally. And then, everybody knows the story, how our original singer left the band the day we started, setting up our gear in the studio, and we're going to go to the label to sign our deal that afternoon, and so, there's a lot of different factors when you look back. Yeah, the timing, the label issue. We had one guy at the label. The guy that signed us was really our cheerleader, Brett Hartman. I'm not convinced that the rest of the label, had the same passion for us as he did. As we mentioned earlier, it was around the time that the grunge movement started happening, and musical taste in general were shifting. So, but you know what, we had our turn at bat, as mentioned, and I think we hit the home run.
Yes.
I would definitely agree as well with that album. Now, I haven't listened to that album, geez, maybe in full, I should say, not just, I've listened to individual songs, but fully, maybe 15 years. Was it?
Blasphemy!
Blasphemy, right.
Well, I didn't want to lie to you guys and say I just listened to the whole album.
Music business, lie to us. It goes a lot better than.
Well, you know what? I just downloaded the entire album to my playlist. How's that?
All right.
Oh, good.
There'll be a quiz tomorrow on the album.
You are forgiven.
Well, with that said, would there ever be a new album of new material coming out for Cold Sweat?
We got a single coming out, don't we, Marcus?
We do have a single. There's not too many bands that are doing albums anymore. I mean, even the biggies, Kiss, Aerosmith, Rolling Stones, Guns N' Roses just dropped 2 singles. I'd be surprised if they do an album. it's just so much has changed in in the last 15 years or so on how music is created, how it's distributed, how it how it's consumed, and unfortunately, just the economics of it doesn't make it feasible to do an album anymore. But certainly singles are a viable option. To keep keep the interest level going in the band and getting our creative yayas out. So,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
and you know, although these days, we've got 5 guys in the band that live in 4 different states of the union. It's I always like being in the room with people. Every recording that I've done, and I'm an old geezer. I remember, 2-inch tape, which doesn't exist anymore for the most part. But yeah, just getting the guys, physically in the same room together is a challenge these days. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
I have to agree with Mark, unfortunately, but like he was saying, we do have a single coming out called "Loud and Forever." It's the first new music that we've put out in almost 40 years. It's going to be coming out on RFK Media, and yeah, I mean we're excited about that. It's out on vinyl right now, so you can you can find it at rfkmedia.com.
and that is with Ron Keel, correct?
Yeah,
yeah.
that's Ron Keel's label. That's Mark's old boss, old running partner.
I'm kind of like what Mark was saying. I just like that old school feel of music when the whole band's together. And I can just think back to some bands during the COVID era. They were putting music out, but it was a video of them on Zoom and this and that. And I just could never wrap myself around that. Now, don't get me wrong, the music was good. I don't know. I'm really old school as well.
Well, me too. Again, I think Roy would agree. It's just like being, physically being present with your bandmates and being in the same room and hearing those drums, and the bass in your chest and the guitars screaming in your ear and the vocalists screaming on top of everything. That's rock to me. The single that we were working on is actually the first time that we weren't in the same room together.
Yes, yeah, that
So
was a bit odd.
we kind of had to do it this way just to get it done. If we all had our druthers, we would have all been in the same room together doing it.
Yes, I mean we would all love to be together and do it the old school way, but modern technology and it's come so far. It's like I'm in my little home studio right here, you know what I mean, and I do some voiceover stuff and I do lots of podcasts and everything. So it's like for me, I've kind of gotten used to that new era of music. Somebody will shoot me a track and I'll upload it onto my Reaper program and I'll cut the vocal. um, but it is kind of like having sex with 12 condoms on, you know what I mean? It's not the same as like being there with the guys and like Mark said, you're feeling the kick drum, you're hearing it, it's loud. It's just, and it's also a primal bonding type experience when you're in there creating something together with other people. I mean, it's very special, but I'm glad that we were able to do this new release and this new single. And even though it was done in the body condom method, we still got it. We still got it out, and it's a good song, man. I mean, it's a great jam. It's got everything that you expect from Cold Sweat, and it's kind of going in the direction that we were already planning on going back in the day. We were wanting to go to a little bit more of a Tesla-ish, hard
Oh.
rock-ish kind of sound.
So when do we? You said it's out on vinyl now. What is it? Is it out on digital release?
They haven't put it out on digital release yet. I know that we were kind of in a hurry to get it mixed so they could do it on the vinyl release of Unburied Alive. I think it's a bonus track on that. Correct, Mark? Is
I
that what you
believe so.
said?
Yeah.
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 But as far as like the release date of the single, as it officially going out as a single and available for download, that has not happened yet. But that is going to be happening in 26, as me and Mark fight to get this band on the festival circuit 2026. We're gonna start playing some supermarket openings and
Yeah.
maybe some car lots to get some agents interested in us. And who knows? We may be doing flea market later.
You guys heard of All American Rejects, have you?
Sure. Know
Have,
those guys.
Yes.
have you seen what they were doing with their band, where they're performing at?
No. No. What's that?
So they have this social media platform, and my son pointed out to me they are playing in people's backyards, at local gas stations, supermarkets, just like you were saying. There is really no set venue. They kind of started it out on their own, and then they had fans write in to see where they could play, and you name it, and they've kind of played it. And it's just like this new marketing technique that they're doing, and you're following them on social media, and they're getting so many thousands and thousands of views on that.
I could see the excitement in Mark's face. He just thinks that's a great idea. We're gonna go down to the Ralphs and play in the produce section. We're gonna do a flash mob by the cucumbers. Okay, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Well,
I mean, look, that's the thing about the music industry right now is everybody's hustling. They're trying to do the next kind of viral thing. They're trying to do the next thing to kind of get those streams, to get those likes, to get those views. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you can't get the kids to go out and buy a record.
Right.
You know?
Oh, man.
That's the thing. I mean, you're bending over backwards to get the attention of these kids, and you're a downloadable blip on their phone. Blip. That's it. But we come from the generation of we wanted to hold it, we wanted to smell it, we wanted
Yes.
to read the lyrics, we wanted to go into the studio and record it the real way. It's the whole industry's changed.
Y-
Good for those guys. Good for them, man. I mean,
Yeah,
I'll play anywhere.
I remember the days of waiting in line at the National Record Mart, the local record stores, to get certain releases of bands because their new album was coming out. And man, once I got my hand on it, I would just put the cassette in, didn't even have the CD players yet, put the cassette in and just be blasting my dad's 76 Gremlin to whatever band that I bought.
Yes, yes, I'm right there with you. I was very fortunate. My parents got me a vet when I was like 16 years old, a Chevette. So
Nice.
Not
That's a good
course.
one.
I was bumping the jams in the vet.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. I love that. Uh,
Uh,
so speaking of bands back then, and I'm gonna just kind of focus on each and every one of you because I know Mark has to leave here shortly. Mark, you've been real successful in kind of multiple careers. Rock star, composer, entrepreneur. You kind of just, I don't want to say went in a different direction, but you kept it in the music industry. But did you know that that's the path you wanted to take after Cold Sweat kind of disbanded, or did it just fall into place for you?
Absolutely not. It was not my game plan. I was hoping that my playing career would go a little longer than it did. But a door closed on me, right? And I had to just figure something out, because I don't have any other skills, right? I don't know how to fix cars. I'm not a carpenter, I'm not an electrician. I know how to play guitar, but back in like '91, when the whole Cold Sweat thing kind of fell apart and the grunge movement came into play, it was very obvious to me that it was going to be really difficult for me to, try to continue on, swimming upstream with one arm, trying to, continue a recording career doing commercial hard rock. And that's, I'm a dyed in the wool, commercial hard rock guy. I don't have a stitch of grunge in me. So, when the grunge movement, became the de facto style of the day, I was a fossil, but fortunately, as one door closed, another opened up. I started getting some demo recordings of mine used in TV shows and films. I had friends that were working, as assistant coffee makers or whatever they were on these TV shows, and some of them were tasked with finding background music. And that's how it all started for me. It was started getting a couple of placements in, some B movies and stuff. And, I'd get a screen credit and a couple $100, but more importantly, I got an idea. That was my aha moment that, maybe there's more opportunities in here in this space that I had originally thought about. And that's kind of started the next part of my journey. Was I started this music library, which became known as Master Source in the very early 90s. And I just kind of went with it. I was working a day gig up until that point in time. And I figured, I can always go back to the day gig if this fails. I can always go back to selling advertising space, whatever it was I was doing back then. And it just blossomed. What started as my beer money became my career money pretty quickly. I wound up selling that library to Universal back in 2007. And I'm still involved in that space. I still produce music for that library, even though I don't own it anymore. I have other clients that I do some production music for, and kind of branched off into other things like supervising films. I've been doing that for the last 10 years. Brokering deals for publishing, just kind of trying to keep the lights on here. So. Yeah. But fortunately, these guys, the Cold Sweat guys were always on my mind. And, we had a couple of false starts before getting the band back together in 2020. There was some dialogue a few years prior. Some opportunities presented itself, but it didn't gel until 2020. And, since then, by the way, we not only played that cruise, we played the cruise this year.
Right.
We got to play Free Festival. We've had 2 appearances on Monsters on the Mountain, which, is a land-based event. And, we're hoping, as Roy said earlier, we're hoping to bang the doors down here a little bit more in 2026 and, try to get on whatever festivals are out there for us. I don't know if we'll be on the 2026 cruise, but I think we'll be on the 2027 cruise for sure. That one's, I'm being told, leaves out of Los Angeles. We'll play wherever we can, as long as it makes sense for us to do it.
I don't want to say that this is a resurgence of 80s and 90s hard rock and heavy metal. For me, I'm just glad to know that bands such as Cold Sweat and Roxy Blue, who I, did an interview with not too long ago, you guys are still out there making music.
Well, I mean, we appreciate that. I mean, we're still out here alive and breathing and kicking, just, kicking like a chicken, just not that high, I'm just, I mean, but there are a lot of artists in our genre that are still out there, grinding it out and touring and playing a lot more than Cold Sweat is. But, we're hoping to change that. We're not expecting to jump on a bus and go forever and ever like we used to back in the day.
Right.
But we do want to try and get out there a bit more in 26, and who knows, what happens. I mean, I've always been in the mindset of, hey, we're not going to be able to do this forever, and as long as there's still some fans out there that would love to see us perform, I think that we ought to do it. And the band is still very viable. I mean, we played the M3 festival, and we know that we're not a well-known band, but we're a cult band, and there were a lot of people online that were like, Cold Sweat? Who's Cold Sweat? Who's this Cold Sweat band? And then when we played, it was like, oh, Cold Sweat. Oh. So, proud of the legacy and proud of everything that we've done, and always hope that we can do some more. So, yeah.
Well, Roy, you kept the music alive, through your other band, The Fifth, and a few other projects well beyond when Cold Sweat disbanded. What drove you to keep, your creative juices flowing?
Well, I mean, I'm a singer, and I'm a performer, and I'm a creative person. So, I have found, as my life has gone on, when I cut that aspect out of my daily routine, my personality, my life, I'm just not happy, so
Mm.
I have to be doing something creative. I have to be involved in something like that to kind of get my creativity out. So I've been really fortunate with the fifth. We've got to do some really cool stuff, and I did incorporate Cold Sweat material into the fifth live show, and the Cold Sweat audience is something that helped the fifth gain some traction as far as like new fans and stuff like that. But it's been a hell of a ride for me, man. I'm still out there doing it. I've got a new record out with the fifth. I'm still jamming with the boys in Cold Sweat. Involved in a Boston tribute band that tours all over the country, and Roy is still singing a
Now,
lot.
now I may have the anniversary date wrong when you mentioned Boston, but is it 2026 and it's going to be 50 years since their debut album?
I think
Yeah,
that's
you got it
correct.
right.
Some of
Yes,
my
sir.
1976, for whatever reason, that year produced so many amazing albums. 1976, like Aerosmith Rocks, which is like my favorite album of all time. Kiss Destroyer.
Yeah.
You know, Ted Nugent, Free for All. Thin Lizzy had a couple albums come out that year. The Eagles, Hotel California was 1976. There's just so many monsters. The Boston album. I don't know what was in the water back then, but that year was just amazing in terms
Weed,
of
lots of weed.
classic albums being released. So hard to believe half a century. Yeah.
Is there anything about Cold Sweat, the story of Cold Sweat, that never gets asked, but you wish people knew?
That's a good
Ooh.
question. We've we've been asked a lot, throughout the years, and I think a lot of people probably know some of the bullet points. It was Cold Sweat was like having a baby, right? You got to push that baby out. From the time I left Keel in early '88. I started doing the demos pretty early, but we did have a brother. We still have a brotherhood. We love each other, and that doesn't get talked about very much. The friendship. We hear the stories out there about how arduous the journey was to get this band, get the album out after all that happened with it. With our original singer leaving, and and as Roy mentioned, litigation. It's just so funny because like after it was all said and done, we got sued by another band called Cold Sweat out of New York. This was after our attorneys and trademark attorneys were saying, "Oh yeah, the trademark's clear."
Oh,
Yeah.
So it was just, oh my God, it's just the story that never ends.
Yes.
But
It was a comedy of errors over and over and over again.
yeah.
so how did you come across Roy for a lead singer?
Well, I'll let Roy tell it. It's an interesting story, and it does have a correlation to our old singer. But I think
Yes.
Roy is. We'll let Roy run with this one.
I am best suited for this one, I guess. Basically, when the whole thing went down with Oni, Marc and them put the ads out in all the industry rags, and they were on Z Rock, which is a syndicated rock show. Marc Ferrari is looking for a lead singer. Are you the guy? And they went looking. They were looking for somebody for like 6 months, and they auditioned literally every guy in Los Angeles, and they had a short list of guys. And believe it or not, I was in my band Gibraltar, my high school band. We were playing up and down the East Coast, and we were happening to be doing a week down in Hallandale, Florida, which was right outside of Miami. And one night, it was one of those nights where you play four sets and you're not done till like 6 o'clock in the morning because everybody's gacked up on cocaine in South Florida. So it was the '80s, by the way. So anyway, this guy comes up to me one night, and he was hammered, man, and he's a cat named Eddie Law, and he's like, "Hey, man, he's my best friend. He sings in this band out in L.A., and he's quitting the band, and they're signed to MCA Records, and Wendy Deer's their manager, and you remember Marc Ferrari, the guy with the blonde streak and Keel. It's his band, and they're signed, and man, you're the perfect singer. Here's Marc's phone number. And I'm like, by that time, I already been playing the bar circuit for like 9 years, and I'm like, yeah, thanks. Okay, man, sure, no problem. So I take the phone number, put it in my pocket, and 2 days go by and everything, and we're out on the road, and the time to do the laundry, and I reach in my pocket, thank God, and there's this phone number, and says Marc Ferrari, and I'm like, oh man, yeah, I remember that guy. And my dad managed my band, and he was on the road with me, and we were sharing a hotel room, and I'm like, Dad, and I tell him the story. I said, should I call? And he goes, well, hell yeah, call it, So
Right.
I give him a call, and Marc is like, is this Marc Ferrari? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, well, this guy. And I told him where it was. And by that time, Marc was 6 months into the singer search. The label's already flown everybody out. He was just spent, and I wouldn't let it go. It's like, look, let me send you. Marc's like, send me a tape and a demo and a picture and all that stuff. Well, I never sent out a promo pack. I didn't know what a promo pack or any of that stuff was, so I haphazardly put something together, sent it out to Marc. Marc hated it. He said I looked like Barney Rubble. He's like, this guy's he doesn't have the look. He sings pretty good, but so I get him on the phone. I'm like, look, man, please. I said, just give me a live audition. Just hear me do this live. And he's like, look, I tell you what. He goes, I'll let you sleep on the floor of my apartment if you pay for your flight out here, and I'll give you an audition. But you fly out, and we'll give you one afternoon to rehearse. You sleep on my floor. You fly in, do the audition, and then you fly out. Right?
Yeah, get the fuck out of my house.
Get the fuck out. You sleep on my floor. And make a long story short, I go in and I kill it. I get the job that afternoon. I fly in on Monday, audition on Wednesday. On Friday, I'm signing a record deal, and before you know it, old Jed's a millionaire. That's it. That's how I got hooked up with Marc.
That is an amazing story right there.
Never been on an airplane before until I flew out to Los Angeles to do that gig.
Oh, wow. That's amazing, guys. Well, I'm glad you took that chance and didn't wash those pants or whatever it was, and
Me as well.
Yeah.
Greatest times of my life. Going
I
around playing
upgraded
rock
him
and
from
roll.
the floor to the couch.
I did get moved to the couch.
Oh, well, see, he cared about you.
Yeah, he did. Marc loves me.
Hey, guys, well, listen, I know, Marc, you got to go and so forth, and I want to thank you both for taking the time to join me on Gen X Marks the Spot podcast. You guys are awesome, man. You have a great rapport amongst each other. I like that.
Well, like I said, Marc actually likes me, and I like Marc. If we lived closer together, I think Marc would actually be my best friend or something.
Oh.
Well,
he might actually take me for a ride in his Ferrari.
or you could take it for a ride in your vet.
Yeah, Marc wouldn't be seen dead in my Chevette. He's got too many famous friends. Make him look bad.
Well, honestly, this is like really heartwarming for me because there are so many bands out there from your era that still tour and don't get along per se, but I can tell that this is natural, genuine for you guys.
It actually is. I mean, it's comical. Marc is the ultimate straight man. The rest of the guys in the band are like complete goofballs, and Marc is always like he's the dry straight man.
Yeah.
He puts up with the nutcases.
All right, guys. Well, hey, again, thank you so much for taking part in Gen X Marks the Spot podcast. I wish you guys the very best for 2026.
All right.
Thank you so much. See you, Marc.
Over and out.
Bye, guys.
And that wraps up the Season 2 premiere of Gen X Marks the Spot podcast. I hope everyone enjoyed Marc and Roy from Cold Sweat discuss their newest album, Unburied Alive, that has 4 studio tracks that have remained buried away somewhere in the MCA warehouse or wherever they decided to bury it. And these guys, man, what a great chemistry they have feeding off of one another. Can you imagine what they're like on stage? It's almost as if they read each other's mind. Gen Xers, we got so much more in store for Gen X Marks the Spot podcast in season 2. Just to give you a little sneak peek of what we have in store for season 2 of Gen X Marks the Spot podcast, we have members of Tesla, Lillian Axe, Hurricane, and someone who knows Lou Gramm of Foreigner quite well. That and much more coming up in season 2 of Gen X Marks the Spot podcast. Peace out. Props for listening, everybody. I am Joe Augustine.